Story 1. Definitely macaroni and cheese. I used to eat it all the time when I was younger, but one day I ate too much and ended up feeling sick. Now, I can't even look at it without feeling a little queasy. Story 2. I once ate honey on toast and got into my second slice before I saw all the ants. Not just a few, and they all came back up. I still eat toast, but I can't think of honey without thinking of ants anymore. Story 3. Circus peanuts, the marshmallow candy, were my favorite as a kid. However, one day I ate too many and ended up getting sick and vomiting bright orange all over the bathroom. Story 4. As a child, I ate applesauce with cinnamon almost every day. Then I got the flu and vomited. I never ate it again. Story 5. One time, I grabbed a box of walnuts in the dark to snack on while watching a movie. I ate quite a lot, even though the taste was off, strange, and oddly airy. I figured whatever, so I kept going. Then I turned on the light, and the box was full of tiny worms. Story 6. My favorite pizza used to be chicken and sweet corn, but years ago I had one with a bone in it. I haven't touched one since because you don't check pizza for bones. Story 7. I can't stand anything cherry-flavored thanks to my best friend vomiting a whole 2-liter bottle of cherry soda down the side of my bunk bed at a sleepover about 35 years ago. Even smelling cherry cola on my husband's breath makes me gag. Story 8. Seaweed. During my first year at university, I bought a large multi-pack of dried seaweed from Costco. I have always loved it, as my grandmother used to eat it straight from the sea. For some reason, I foolishly decided this would be enough to live on. If anyone is considering trying this, I found that the daily limit is about 50 to 60 grams of dried seaweed before you start feeling quite uncomfortable. Story 9. I used to love eating chocolate cake. It was my favorite treat. However, after having too many slices at a family gathering, I overindulged and regretted it. I have not been able to enjoy it the same way since. Story 10. I devoured an entire family-sized bag of salt and vinegar chips while binge-watching. My tongue was raw, and my stomach violently rejected my poor life choices at 3 a.m. The taste of vinegar still haunts me. Story 11. I ate an entire pack of white chocolate Freddo frogs on a hot day. It has been 30 years and I still can't look at them. Story 12. From a friend. It was Campbell's tomato soup. The aftermath looked like the set of a slasher movie. They have never touched tomato soup since. Story 13. I used to love milk as a child. One day I had a stomach flu and kept vomiting. My mom made me drink warm milk and told me it would soothe my stomach. As soon as I drank it, I threw up. Since then, I have not been able to drink milk on its own. Until a few years ago, I could barely handle dairy products like coffee with creamer, milkshakes, yogurt, and soft cheeses. Now, I can handle foods with milk. I just can't drink plain milk. Story 14. Nesquik hot chocolate. My primary school camp in the late 1990s was in the middle of the bush in rural New Zealand. We carpooled, and my carpool buddy and eventual roommate became violently ill. I woke up one morning in denial. Later that evening, we were offered food I couldn't eat and then hot chocolate to wash it down. Thinking I would feel better with something hot, I quickly drank it. I walked outside, hoping I could just rest and sleep it off, but I was overwhelmed by the liquid and vomited into a flax bush. I couldn't go home right away because we were hours from nowhere on a confidence course, and my parents took the opportunity to drive to another faraway place and play golf for 4 days. I can't stand the smell of hot chocolate. It makes me queasy. I can stomach all kinds of things. I'm not easily made ill, but hot chocolate affects me every time. Story 15. I had the flu when I was a little kid, but my parents didn't believe me. I was very sick, barely holding my head up. They had plans to go to a restaurant with friends, and I was too young to stay home. I can't remember if I even got food, but if I did, I can't imagine I ate it. Next to me, my mother had French onion soup. Nowadays, French onion soup embodies many things I love. It includes all the elements I use in my cooking. I should love French onion soup, but I can't bring myself to try it. It is indelibly ingrained in my memory of those moments that felt like days, barely holding it together, sweating, aching, and overwhelmed by a football game on a big screen I couldn't focus on. I was trying desperately not to throw up in the middle of a booth between my parents. All I could see was that cheese stretching over the spoonful and the smell of the broth, and it's stuck with me now, forever related to how awful I felt. Maybe someday I'll make it myself and finally file it away. I'm an adult. I know I can handle it. I could get a bowl right now and I know I'd be fine. It's just one of those stark, visceral food memories I haven't felt the need to challenge. Story 16. Red Lobster. In late winter 2002, I had a rough experience that kept me up all night. To this day, I still dislike Red Lobster. Story 17. Green juice. A bottle of Happy Planet gave me food poisoning, and now I can't look at it. I still make juices at home, but they can't be dark green. Story 18. I remember eating a salami and cheese sandwich in first grade at my Australian school when I was 6 years old, and I got sick from it. I have never eaten salami again. Story 19. When I was about 10 years old, I was at a sleepover where they served little sausages. I ate so many of them that I ended up getting sick, and my dad had to come pick me up. I have never eaten another little sausage since then, and now I am 55 years old. Story 20. The croissant sandwich from Burger King was a favorite of mine as a child, but I became very ill after eating one and have not enjoyed fast food breakfast in general since then. Story 21. Domino's Chicken Bacon Ranch Pizza. McDonald's Quarter Pounder with Cheese. Culver's Butter Burger. All three took at least 2 years before I could eat again. Story 22. I was a very picky eater as a kid. I mostly ate cheese pizza and chicken nuggets. One year we went on a family trip to Rome and I caught a stomach bug. The last thing I ate before getting sick was cheese pizza. To avoid my mom finding out that the only thing I would eat had been ruined, I chose cheese pizza again. Story 23. Banana bread, banana chips, and fried plantains are all excellent. Whole mushy tropical fruits. No thanks. Eating too many banana slices and then being sick at snack time in kindergarten remains a core memory, even 4 decades later. Story 24. I had a stomach bug that came on suddenly after eating spaghetti bolognese, and I have not been able to eat it since. It has been 4 years. Story 25. Spaghetti bolognese. When I was a kid, I threw that up on the carpet in my bedroom and partially over the bed. The stench lingered for weeks because the carpet, of course, was part of the floor and couldn't be removed. I could never smell or eat another spaghetti bolognese again. Even anything remotely from a cow would be bad. Story 26. Tater tots. I loved them as a child. I had them at the elementary school cafeteria and got sick afterward. Never again. Story 27. Iced tea and burritos. I can no longer drink or eat that after suffering from serious food poisoning. I know the iced tea wasn't the cause. It was just the last thing I consumed before getting sick. However, I am quite certain the burrito made me ill, as it was the only thing I had eaten that day. I felt perfectly fine beforehand, but after eating, I became seriously unwell within an hour, experiencing vomiting and diarrhea for the next few days, along with not feeling great for a while afterward. Additionally, the place where I bought the burrito closed not long after, within about a year. I'm not sure of the exact reason, but it seems too coincidental to me. Story 28. Ranch Pringles. I was watching a classic movie from the 1980s called Ice Pirates. There were neither pirates nor any ice in this movie. I can no longer eat Pringles, and I also cannot watch this film ever again. The combination did something to me that I can't quite explain. Story 29. Mini cupcakes. I was 7 or 8 years old when I had a whole pack of them in one sitting. I had to be hospitalized. I still can't enjoy frosting. Story 30. When I was young, I had a similar experience with pistachios and gummy bears. I was in my 30s before I could enjoy either of them, but now I love them. The last thing I ate before a 3-day bout of food poisoning from a Caesar salad when I was a teenager was hazelnut chocolate. I still can't stand hazelnut chocolate, although Nutella is slowly growing on me. Story 31. Double chocolate chip cookies. I caught a winter vomiting virus and threw up after treating myself to a bag. Never again. I feel sick every time I see them. Story 32. Chili. My mom said the 2-week-old leftovers in the back of the fridge were fine. I never knew a chili bean could come out of your nose while vomiting. Story 33. I used to love Popeye's fried chicken until I got food poisoning from it twice in a row. That being said, if you're flying through Atlanta, the Popeyes there does have the best breakfast biscuits. I just skip the chicken tender biscuit and get sausage instead. Story 34. Pulled pork. I found a living worm in my sandwich when I was a child after a few bites. I still cannot look at it without feeling nauseous. Story 35. Not technically a food, but cherry Coke. I mixed it with cherry vodka all night and couldn't taste the alcohol until I got alcohol poisoning. I can't even smell cherries now without gagging. Story 36. I experienced food poisoning from a Sonic hamburger once. Now, I occasionally eat something from Sonic, but my stomach turns at the thought of eating there. Story 37. I ate a 3-pound bag of walnuts in one sitting and threw it all up shortly after. It was like chunky, acidic peanut butter coming up. Story 38. Werther's Original Caramel Hard Candy. 35 years ago, I ate half a bag of them and then drank a 32-ounce cup of sweet tea. I haven't touched either since. Story 39. Pizza with green olives. As a child, I had the unfortunate experience of eating it at the same meal as deli meat that had been out too long. But the pizza was what stuck in my mind. I couldn't eat it for many years. Fettuccine Alfredo with crab. I had this on vacation the night I started experiencing symptoms from norovirus. I still can't eat it. Homemade wild rice and mushroom soup. Another virus, and I still don't want to eat it. Story 40. Cherries. I experienced strong dopamine responses from food, which my therapist believes may be a trauma response. Growing up, we had a cherry tree at the house we lived in when I was 10. I overeated, often consuming so much that I made myself sick, and since then, anything related to cherries is off limits. Even if it's just a hint of the flavor, like in fruit punch, it's completely unacceptable. Story 41. I used to be a strong advocate for green tea, but one time I got sick after drinking it, and I haven't touched it since. Story 42. I used to be addicted to shrimp. I went to an all-you-can-eat buffet and had fried shrimp, buttered shrimp, and popcorn shrimp. I ate so much that I felt sick, but I still got a to-go cup for my drink and ended up filling it with popcorn shrimp. I put the lid and straw in it to pretend I was drinking something from it. The movement from walking to my car made my stomach give up. I still like shrimp, I just don't love it. Story 43. When I was about 10, I ate a full-sized bag of Cool Ranch Doritos. I threw up most of it and didn't touch them again until my mid-20s. They were my favorite flavor, but even though I can enjoy them again, nacho cheese is now my favorite. Story 44. Not me. I watched my aunt vomit large quantities of cantaloupe into a clear gallon storage bag when I was a child. I still don't eat it. I'm 46. Story 45. I ate ham for breakfast, and about an hour later, I vomited everything. That was over 20 years ago, and I refused to eat ham at all. Story 46. Three Musketeers Bar. I became a bit overzealous one Halloween and haven't eaten one since that night. Story 47. I used to eat whole cans of black olives and loved putting them on my fingers. Then in 3rd grade, I got very sick. They thought it was the flu, but I was ill for over 3 weeks and had to return to school after the first week and suffered silently long after. I threw up that entire can of black olives to start it all off. It's the first time I remember thinking I was going to die, and everyone essentially stopped believing I was even sick anymore after the first week. It was gruesome. My coworker mentioned that it might have been caused by botulism, not the flu, and some major puzzle pieces have been filling in since that time. I think she was correct, but I'm never eating olives again. Story 48. Cool Ranch Doritos. But I didn't overeat them. I definitely caught a stomach bug. And of course, you associate throwing up with the last food you ate. I didn't touch a blue bag of Doritos for years. This happened in about 4th or 5th grade, and I didn't try Cool Ranch until either college or after college. Story 49. Doritos. While I was not the one who vomited, I had to clean it up from the back seat because my kids were sick everywhere. The smell was horrendous. Story 50. I live down the road from an asparagus farm, so one day I ran down before work and grabbed a large bag, enough for at least 30 people. I was a busy person back in those days. I had two jobs with an hour's drive between them. One began early and the other started late. This left little time for sleep, shopping, cooking, or leisure. I came home from my night job around 2:30 a.m., and I was starving. I opened the fridge, and the choices were limited. I had one hard-boiled egg, an almost empty jar of relish, a bottle of vodka in the freezer, and a 10-pound bag of asparagus. I steamed about half that bag of asparagus to perfection and then ate it, all of it. I crawled into bed, but 15 minutes later, I crawled out of bed and went to the bathroom. I spent the next hour and a half wishing that asparagus had never existed and that I had never been born. Just a whiff of it makes me visibly gag, even after 25 years. Story 51. At 7 years old, I was starting to come down with a stomach issue and didn't feel good. My brilliant self decided to devour a salami and cheese sandwich, setting the stage for unpleasantness. About an hour later, I really started to feel unwell, on the verge of throwing up without recognizing the signs. I ended up vomiting while trying to hold it in my mouth, which was a big mistake, as I ran to the bathroom, and it started coming out of my nose. 40 years later, I still can't eat salami. Story 52. Mine isn't food. I tried orange juice when I was sick, thinking it would help, but I ended up throwing it up and can no longer drink it. Story 53. I love spaghetti. I had a diseased gallbladder and I vomited spaghetti out of my nose. Literal noodles, but I will never give it up. I'm not a quitter. Story 54. Wendy's chocolate frosty. When I was going through chemotherapy, that was the only thing I could taste, and I inevitably threw it up. Ironically, just today, a year after chemotherapy, I tried one again. Luckily, my coworker isn't afraid of my germs and finished it, because one bite was enough for me to say no. Story 55. Fettuccine Alfredo. I was 19 when I got sick after eating it and was never able to think about eating it again, until I became pregnant with my second child at 36. It was all I craved. Hormones are strange. I can eat it just fine now. Story 56. Chicken pasta bake. The specific meal in question definitely had chicken that was past its best. Being poor in college is challenging. I had appendicitis that was completely unrelated to that dinner, but throwing up has made it impossible for me to be in the room with it now. The appendix episode nearly killed me, so I'm not surprised my body developed such strong disgust towards the last thing I ate at the time. Story 57. Not really a food, but orange juice. I threw up after drinking a lot as a child, and that was some sticky, foul-smelling, awful-colored vomit. Story 58. I ate a whole extra-large bag of Cheetos at a wedding once and spent the entire night feeling sick. Story 59. I ate way too many flapjacks as a kid, threw up, and did not eat them for about 15 years afterward. Story 60. Salt and vinegar chips. I ate an entire family-size bag during a Netflix marathon. The acid burned my tongue, and what came up was even more acidic. I haven't touched them since 2019. Story 61. Carrot and apple juicer smoothie gave me a viral infection that put me in shock and shut my body down. I flatlined for a bit but came out of it, though not without some embarrassment. Even though it was definitely the carrot-related virus, it put me off apples since then. That's what I get for trying to be healthy. Story 62. Salt and vinegar crisps. I loved them but hadn't had them for ages. I bought a pack, and they made me violently sick. I don't dare try again. Story 63. Pickles. I ate a whole jar, got sick, and was unwell for a couple of days. I can't even stand the smell to this day, and this happened over 20 years ago. Story 64. We left the United States and ate very organically on our trip. That country ate like that without probably realizing how organic their food is. Coming home and readapting to this stuff called food has been one wild ride. I will never eat Cool Ranch Doritos again. They caused me to have mouth sores and made me sicker than a dog. Cool Whip tastes like lighter fluid. Twinkies made me so horribly sick I can't even stand to look at them. That gelatinous berry substance they put in fancy cakes doesn't seem to contain real berries. I can stomach Oreos now, but it took me a couple of years to eat them again. For a good year after coming back, I either felt poisoned after eating or very unsatisfied. Story 65 Marshmallow Peeps. I ate 5 jumbo ones in the span of 2 minutes when I was 8. My body was not pleased and decided to reject them. Story 66 Chili and Rice. I had swine flu and was vomiting for a week straight, but that first episode with the rice and minced meat was enough to put me off for a lifetime. Story 67 Fish and Chips. I had not eaten anything that greasy in a few years, and my stomach could not handle it. It is not worth eating that unhealthy again just to enjoy them. Story 68. It's not food, but dining in Mexican restaurants. I contracted E. coli, and it began to affect me during dinner before prom. Story 69. Beef tips and rice. My friend used to make it, and I would go over just to eat that meal. I ate too much once and threw it up when I got home. That was like 20 years ago. Story 70. Kielbasa cooked in sauerkraut and beer. It was a Christmas Eve gathering, and I was about 12 or 14 years old. I hadn't been feeling well all day, but my mom checked me for a fever and said it was just too much holiday excitement and treats. Any other year, she would have been right. I remember retching up the kielbasa into my uncle's kitchen trash while my aunt kept patting my back and saying, "Oh, she's so warm. I think she has a fever. I hope it's not the food. Is she okay?" Turns out I did have some kind of illness, and I don't remember Christmas morning because I had a high fever and was delirious enough to go to the emergency room. They got my fever down and gave me fluids and antibiotics that helped me feel better in a few days. Luckily, no one else in my family got sick. Unfortunately, everyone stopped eating the kielbasa, leaving my aunt and uncle with about 3 to 4 pounds of it, which I still feel bad about over 30 years later. Took me years before I could eat it again. Something about the smell made the taste come back up into my mouth. Story 71. Cotton candy. I loved it as a child until one day at a theme park turned into a sugar overload disaster. I haven't touched it since. Story 72. I can eat scrambled eggs with cheese all the time. I must have eaten an old egg or old cheese because I felt my stomach churning after a few bites. I didn't throw it all up, but it did force me to the sink where I gagged and a little came out. Story 73. Raisins. I must have loved them for how many I ate. Also, applesauce came to mind when I was pregnant. It reminded me of that scene in The Office where Dwight is peeling something and Pam casually throws up in the trash can and continues working. Story 74. During the first Thanksgiving weekend that my partner and I spent together, we rented some movies and got snacks to enjoy on Wednesday evening before the holiday. One of the snacks was a port wine cheese ball to have with crackers. Unfortunately, her elementary school-age daughter brought home a severe strain of the flu, and the three of us spent the entire weekend suffering from cold sweats and uncontrollable vomiting. I'm sure the food had nothing to do with it, as our daughter is autistic and has a very limited diet that does not include cheese balls. That was in 2009, and to this day we still avoid those cheese balls. Story 75. This is somewhat related, but let me share a story. I was about 7 years old at a family house party, wandering around by myself. I came across an open can of beer. With no adults in sight, I snuck over and thought, "Oh yeah, I'm going to take a swig," and started chugging. Well, it turns out there was no beer left in it. It was someone's dip spit can. I have never tried to drink beer since that day over 25 years ago, and I never will. I kid you not, I felt nauseated just writing this. Story 76. Boy, am I glad I've not had that happen to me. That said, I stopped eating school macaroni and cheese after I saw a classmate projectile vomit it after recess once. I shudder to think about it because I swear people have hammer space stomachs or something. Story 77. I almost threw it up. The whole wheat bread had mold. I haven't enjoyed it the same way in a decade. Story 78. I used to eat those hot mamas in a jar at the store until I ate a bad one. Who knows how long those things had been sitting in that jar. Story 79. I love chicken liver, but I have thrown up from it twice. Now I am scared to eat it again. I enjoy it though, I used to eat it a lot. I don't know what is wrong this time. Story 80, pineapple. I had a chunk fly down my throat unchewed enough to cause a gagging fit that made me run to the bathroom. I've avoided it ever since. Story 81. I would barely touch spaghetti for most of my life because of that. I just started eating it again within the past year or two. Story 82. Movie theater popcorn. The Jack Daniel's sauce chicken and shrimp dinner at TGI Fridays. I loved the sauce so much that I added extra to everything. However, my stomach decided one day that it was enough. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.